My name is Madison. I'm a 45-year-old working mother. I earned an associate's degree and currently work for a local real estate business. I am a professional with 25 years of expertise. I've had ups and downs during the last 30 years. I've been married twice and have one child. My first marriage occurred in my 20s, but my ex-husband died in a horrific vehicle accident. I was so sad that I considered following him. At the time, my present husband, Caleb, who was 2 years my junior, consoled me and gave me hope for the future. He was the worst salesman in Sam's office, beside me, but I thought he was adorable. After we married, the charm I perceived in him faded, giving way to unreliability and triviality. When I was gone, he soothed me and confided in me about his love. "Madison, I'm in love with you. Please marry me. I want to make you happy again." When I was in the dark abyss, his tenderness drew me in. 3 years after my ex-husband died, I finally accepted his persistent proposals and married him. It's been 70 years since then. Although I was unable to have children with my ex, I did have a son with Caleb. My son Landon was already 15 years old. He was a junior in high school, working hard on a project for a national science research competition. I had a tumultuous life, yet I felt happy again. At least that was my belief until a year ago. The change occurred when we had to determine what to do with Caleb's mother. I want my mother to move in with us. I was concerned about her being alone and lonely at home. Caleb suggested it when his father died. "We have a spare bedroom that we rarely use, you know. It may be her room." I pondered. True, there was a spare bedroom that was rarely used, except for infrequent guests. But if I had to live with my mother-in-law, the situation would be very different. I didn't want to cause a disruption in Landon's studies. If my mother could take up the housework, you have more time to spend caring for Landon. She can even make late-night nibbles for him. He replied simply. When Landon stayed at school with his study team, he had to eat fast food for dinner. Some mothers packed or brought healthy meals for their children. I work every day, so I've always felt guilty about not being able to support him like the other mothers. If John had been able to do that, Landon would not have been pleased. I could sympathize with her husband's death, not only in a calculated way. I knew too well how they felt about being left behind. I wanted to relieve her grief by allowing her to live with us. Kara eventually left her rental place and moved in with us. However, that was a huge error. When she moved in, both she and Caleb changed dramatically. "Here, dear, open your mouth." "Thank you, Mommy." John took a scoop of mashed potato and put it in Caleb's mouth. "Yummy. You've always liked mashed potatoes since you were a child, darling." I understood her love for her son, which she generously shared with him. Was it acceptable for a 70-year-old mother to do this to her 44-year-old son? She fed Caleb like a baby. Since John moved in, Caleb has become a self-centered and selfish brat. "Jack, give him some of your mashed potatoes. It's his favorite meal." "No way. Why should I? Any potato dish was also my favorite food." "Can't you share a bed with your husband?" What a horrible wife. Whatever it was, I wasn't going to move. "You see, Mommy, she always treats me as if I were nothing. She acts superior to me since she is a little older. Before John moved in, he called her Ma, but now she goes by Mommy." A man in his 40s was calling his mother Mommy. Even our 50-year-old son calls me Mom. I felt nauseated and lost my appetite. "Come on, give him some." Wait. John simply dug her spoon into my mashed potato and scooped out a bit in a rude manner. "Here we go, dear." "Thank you, Mommy." It was disgusting to watch. The discussion between the brat and his mother made me roll my eyes. I wonder if they will soon begin holding hands in public. It wasn't only that their connection was strange. When John first moved in, she was probably dressed in sheepskin. Thank you for watching. She briefly shaded herself, revealing her true character. "Look, Madison, the restroom floor is filthy. You can't even complete your chores properly." She was meant to take on the housework. Despite her pledge, she did nothing but watch TV in her room every day. And she critiqued the way I handled things. "If you dislike it, please do it yourself. I'm also really busy at work." If I responded, she instantly sought to persuade Caleb to be by her side. "Darling, this is dreadful." I was simply telling her out of kindness. Of course, she chose her side. "You should listen to the older ones." If I needed to listen to her, I was also older than Caleb. She did little to help with the housework, and she never bothered to make Landon's late-night munchies. On the contrary, she bothered him while he was working on his studies. John turned down the volume while Landon was working. It is too loud for him to concentrate. She didn't flinch even when I complained harshly. "What is wrong with you? My hearing isn't good. Allow me to view it as loudly as I like." She responded, "He is not focusing hard enough if TV bothers him. I will tell him." "Landon, come here for a moment." She leveled an unreasonable charge against him. "Stop it. I do my best." But she never helped to minimize the noise. Landon had no choice except to work late at school or with his teammates. John didn't like it. She repeatedly called Landon's cell phone. That cannot be given to her without his approval. "Landon, why are you still out this late? Come back now." When I took the phone away from Mom, I realized that such unfair treatment was detrimental to his education and morality. She began yelling at me. "It is your fault to begin with. Your lack of discipline makes him overly careless. I will teach a lesson alongside Landon." I fled from John, who was violently yelling at me, and sought sanctuary with my neighbor. "There's no point in hiding from me." She barged into several of my neighbors and ended up arguing with them. Seriously, it was a terrible idea to let her move in. I deeply regretted my decision. But even if I kicked her out, she didn't have anywhere to go. She could travel to her siblings' place, which was hours away from the nearest town and in the middle of nowhere. She firmly rejected it, stating that she would never live there. Her retirement was modest, and she did not want to work on their farm to subsist. Nonetheless, the current circumstances would destroy our family. I made up my mind and requested, "Please relocate out of this house. I will find you a place to reside through my efforts." John was surprised at first, but she quickly smirked. "Who decided such a thing?" "Caleb has not said anything to me." "Okay, darling, I don't have to move out, right?" "The end," she cooed, leaning against him. "You know, we need to make an effort to be patient when living together." He took her side. "She has also put up with a lot of stuff. You both should be more considerate. It's sad that you just kicked her out. What type of consideration has she ever shown?" I was determined that she would depart. Then she said something unusual. "If you don't want to go with me, you can leave. Regardless, this is Caleb's abode. Leave Landon with us and get out." What? I couldn't understand what she was telling me. Was I the one who left? From this house? I don't understand it. He worked hard to obtain this property. You may argue that you also worked, but I doubt you make enough to afford such a home. You took advantage of your older age and gazed at him, but I'm not going to let you do it anymore. Caleb was fidgeting next to his mother, who was cursing and spitting in my face. "Darling, do you agree with me?" Before he could finish, she intervened. "Why do you suppose I allowed him to marry an older, used woman like you in the first place?" She abruptly shifted the subject, "Only for you to bear a child. Otherwise, I would never have accepted this marriage with you, an ex-widow and used woman." Did she refer to me as used? I could not believe it. Wait, how impolite are you to call me that? Is this the truth, darling? I anticipated him finally reprimanding his mother, but that was wishful thinking. Well, my mother used to tell me that I should marry and have a son with whoever. To be honest, I assumed it would be simpler to lose a sad widow woman. He's depressed without a care in the world. I like a younger female, but she claimed it was better to have an older woman who was past her prime. Are you serious? I was astounded. John managed every aspect of his approach and proposal to me. It didn't matter who she was, as long as she could serve as an instrument for bearing children. Landon has already grown up, thus you are no longer needed. Leave him behind and escape from this house. She declared proudly, "I will discipline him from now on and raise him to be a perfect man." I saw my 17-year marriage. My head was reduced to ashes. Caleb's affection and John's kindness were all deceptions. The realization shocked me beyond belief. I then decided to get divorced, but before I could mention the globe, something happened. John's relative died, and there was going to be a funeral. Her relative, too, lived in the middle of nowhere. Therefore, it was impossible to return on the same day. There were several Landons in the area, and it would take at least a week to complete. Caleb was able to take paid leave despite being given very short notice. It made no difference whether he was present or not because he was the company's worst salesman. Incredible. I was impressed in an unusual way. John wanted Landon to come alone, but the research team was about to conduct the model's final test that week. "I'll bring him over once he's finished, so I guess there's no other option. You don't really have to come." Her sarcasm remained constant, as it always did. Landon will eventually inherit all of the land, so he needs to meet everyone and learn about the Landons. To be continued, I thought whatever you said in my head and remained silent. I was grateful for the greatest opportunity to carry out my plan. Caleb and John departed to attend the funeral. 3 days later, it was burial day. Landon was finished with his project, but we decided to stay put. Then I texted Caleb during the funeral. "I am divorcing you. Landon is going with me. Goodbye." I assumed he was too surprised to understand the gravity of the situation. Triple question mark, and she only responded with 3 question marks. John called me 4 days after sending the text. "Hello, are you all back? You were gone for a little longer." I responded, "Where are you now?" She began ranting right away. "We can't get into the house. Have you changed the locks while we were away?" They were frantic when they discovered that their key did not work and they were trapped outside with their luggage. I replied calmly, "That's correct, I changed the lock. I can't let weird people in freely, you know." My spiteful demeanor irritated her. "What do you mean? Are you calling me weird?" She was outraged. "Not only you, but also Caleb. How come nobody is at home? Where's Landon? He is studying next to me. It's a small apartment, but he claims he can concentrate better without noise." Landon was taking a break at that time. To study effectively, he needed to rest properly. I wasn't going to be picky about it. We've already moved out. It's very convenient to work for a real estate company. We found a nice place that we could move into right away. As a real estate agent, I knew a lot of home and apartment owners. You are very welcome to leave, but how dare you change the lock? This is Caleb's house. She still didn't understand reality. That isn't his house. It is mine. What? She was so surprised that she choked on her words. The 3-bedroom house was too large for one person, but ideal for a family of 3. We were living in harmony until John arrived. Did you really think the worst salesman, like your son, could afford such a nice house in that area? I ate it with the intent to injure. I planned on selling it. I don't want to keep it and have you intrude on us. I kept ranting. John had lost her words after I described your son as the worst salesman. He will get divorce papers in a few days. Even if I ask for alimony, he will be unable to pay due to his low salary. Let's get this over with quickly. She then said something unexpected. Yes, right. You do not understand, do you? When a couple divorces, they must divide their assets. Caleb will receive half of the sales proceeds. She worked hard to keep her wits about her. John, I do not have to share the assets I had before the marriage. I laughed at her shallow wisdom. I purchased it using my ex-husband's life insurance. This unexpected legal provision left her speechless. Are you getting it? That's it. I was about to hang up when stubborn John began screaming. Then return Landon to us. I am not giving up custody of my only grandson. I turned on the speaker and invited Landon to join the conversation. Hello, Landon. Your grandmother wants to live with you. She says you can have her inheritance. What would you like to do? He threw away the magazine he was reading and exclaimed, "No way, I can't. That is out of the question. She and her father are extremely eccentric. I shudder at the thought of what she would do to me if I became her family's heir." I turned off the speaker and announced, "Here you go. He does not want to be the heir, so find someone else. However, a son like yours, who is over 40, has a low income, and his mommy's boy will have difficulty finding a woman. Take care." Caleb and I divorced. The lawyer I hired through my work connection was able to collect a significant amount of child support in one lump sum. Caleb allegedly consulted with several lawyers, but each refused to take the case. It wasn't a case he could have won in court, and everyone knew he was a terrible salesman. The house was sold on favorable terms, taking full advantage of my career. Caleb and John had lost their house. Caleb gave up being mommy's boy and moved out of John's home. She was forced to move to the middle of nowhere and work on a farm. Pigs are my absolute pet peeve, she used to declare, and it made me feel good to imagine her crying every day. I'll work hard until I retire. A comfortable life with a full pension is right around the corner.